I'm kind of thankful in a way that there was only like one musical challenge.
Yeah, right. And that got canceled like the day before or something like that.
Yeah. Oh wow, you know your shit. That's cool. Well, I think it speaks for itself that I have that right there. It was like one of the first things I moved into my house, and I have no idea where my degree from university is. It's like under my bed somewhere. Ironically, people kind of trolling me and saying like, "Oh, you only like green," actually helped me a lot. Yeah, my first reaction to Jared inviting me was like not excitement. The first reaction I had was like, "Me? Are you sure?" You know.
Real quick before we start, I just wanted to mention that we do these podcast recordings live on stream. We stream every single Wednesday at 6 p.m. EST on Twitch. It's an opportunity for you guys to come hang out, interact, and ask your questions directly to all of our guests. We also have a Discord if you want to keep talking more about deathcore and metalcore, or simply to keep up with everything that we're doing, upcoming guests, and all that jazz. I'll leave links to both of these things in the description wherever you are watching or listening. And with that out of the way, please enjoy this episode. Welcome to episode 11 of the Brutality podcast. I'm joined as always by my co-host Yan. How you doing?
Pretty good. Super good.
All right. And we are also joined this week by the one and only, the man himself, Andrew Baena, the complainer. Welcome to the show.
What's up? Thanks for having me, guys. It'll be a good one. Words are already hard and we haven't even begun. That's a good start.
There we go.
There you go. You know?
Perfect.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I just want to mention for anyone who's watching on the replay, it is currently Valentine's Day. And as I've mentioned elsewhere on social media, you know, as two married men out of three here, we decided to kick it on a podcast instead of hang out with our wives. I do understand you're a little earlier than we are. I guess it's not too bad for you. I guess you can still grab supper afterwards.
Yeah, I'm a very lucky man. She's making a steak for me like now, I think.
Wow. Okay.
I get to do the podcast
you get
and
to chill, sit back, do a podcast, so you get the good food afterwards. That's good. Yeah. That's good.
gotta show her off a little bit, right?
Of course. But yeah, man, like I said, thanks for coming on. I mean, we've got so much to talk about because I feel like you're a very, I guess, multifaceted man, if one could say so. Obviously, you know, I think a lot of people know you through YouTube. I mean, you've been doing it forever. You started YouTube, like it's been over a decade at this point. More recently-ish, you know, TikTok has been blowing up. You've almost got like a million subscribers, like a million followers over on TikTok right now, which is absolutely crazy. But then Carcosa, I mean, has been doing the rounds as well. I mean, it's been, I think from the outside looking in, has been doing really, really well. I was fortunate enough to see you guys play in Montreal last time you guys came around with Angel Maker. Yeah. And the general just like impression that I had was that moving through the crowd, all I could hear was, "Oh shit! Oh fuck!" You know,
that's
like,
awesome.
Every time
that's the best reaction you can have.
Yeah, for sure. So how's it been for you? Because we'll get into, you know, previous bands and all that stuff. But how's it been so far with Carcosa, the reception, and you know, I'd love to hear how things have been going recently.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, obviously, thanks for saying all that. I really appreciate it. I don't know. You have a lot of kind words for me, and I appreciate that. But yeah, Carcosa's been doing pretty good. It's been a bit of a slow start to the year here, but we did a lot last year. You know, we started touring for the first 2 tours ever last year, and then still managed to put out, I think, 2 new songs last year. So a little slow right now, but we're kicking up to doing some new stuff really soon. And yeah, we've been kind of pretty much like blown away with the reception of how everything has been so far. I definitely didn't expect it to get as big as it has gotten already, especially, you know, like the release of our first song. I know you guys were just listening to A Plague in the pre-show. Thanks for doing that, by the way. But yeah, I don't know. Just overall, it's like, it's a good feeling, but also I have this like weird little thing in my brain for everything I do, but especially Carcosa, where I'm always like, wow, this is cool, but something bad must be happening next. So I always have this like dumb little Yeah, I always have that like little fear that I'm like, okay, things are going too good. Something must like fail eventually, but that's probably a good place to be and probably not a
motivation,
healthy.
I guess, slash good
Exactly.
problems.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, yeah, it's been going pretty good and definitely has far surpassed any of our expectations, I think.
I think especially when it comes to maybe comparing it to everything that the Galactic Pegasus, I guess, went through, but also just because you guys were doing that for context. I guess the four of you were in Galactic Pegasus before doing Carcosa, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I think Travis, our drummer, was the last person to join the previous band Galactic Pegasus, and I think he joined around like 2018 or something like that.
Sure.
And then Johnny had joined in like 2016 or something like that. So the four of us had been making music together already for a varying amount of time. Like with Cooper, it's been like 10 years. But yeah, like we had a shit ton of lineup changes, a bunch of roadblocks, dead ends, doing things wrong because it was my first band ever. I didn't know what I was doing, right?
Yeah.
So
you all
yeah.
were young at that point too when you guys started, right? Because we are talking about over 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think I started the band when I was like 20, maybe 19, something like that.
I mean, the demo stuff was like 2011, I guess.
Yeah.
So maybe a bit before, like during that year or a bit before.
Yeah, something around that time. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the first thing we ever did was just a random YouTube video. Because again, I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I just put it on YouTube before it was probably ready to go live. Because I was like, yeah, let's see what happens. But yeah, it's been a long time. Started as like a solo project, then became a band, then had all these member changes, and then by the time we kind of got to the final lineup of Galactic Pegasus, we sounded like entirely different than GP had started. So we were just like, look, why don't we just restart as a completely new band with the same people, because we at least know we get along with each other and have like, the same passion and drive. It would probably make more sense to just start from scratch, knowing all these terrible mistakes we've made so far. And yeah, that's kind of what led to Carcosa eventually, being a thing. And we're very happy we did that. It was a huge risk, Did
you guys know, like, when you guys were ending Galactic Pegasus, that you guys were going to do Carcosa?
Yeah, we already had the first EP already completely done.
Oh, okay.
When GP played our final show. So it was kind of funny because we played our last show, but like all four of us the whole time we were up there, like we weren't sad at all.
Yeah.
Well, we were a little bit, but but at the same time we were like, I mean, we're going to be doing this again. And well, at that point it was COVID, but like before COVID, we didn't know that. Anyways, yeah, we were like, we'll be playing shows again in no time. It's not that big of a deal. But it was kind of funny because when we were playing our last show, there's people that are like, oh, it's so sad that you guys are breaking up. And we're like, oh, well.
Psych.
Yeah.
I mean, that is kind of weird timing too, I guess, because when you guys eventually came out with Carcosa, like you mentioned, it was the very beginning of COVID, right? It was like June, July, like it was a couple months into COVID. I guess no one even knew at that point what that was gonna be like, and then that kind of put a halt on doing your first show. And I guess even your first show wasn't supposed to be your first show. You guys like randomly announced a surprise last minute being added to Arcspire's like a CD release show, and that got canceled like the day before or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Your shit. That's cool. Yeah.
It was our first show, but psych, not anymore.
Yeah. It was something, I don't remember like exactly what the chain of events was, but yeah, we were super lucky that Galactic Pegasus even got to play a final show. Cause I think we literally did that final show on like, I don't know, let's say like, honestly, probably around this time, 4 years ago or so. Yeah. So
you guys started it, is what you're saying.
Maybe. Actually, I blame it on going to NAMM. I definitely got COVID at NAMM, and I just didn't know what it was. So you can blame me for bringing it to British Columbia, perhaps. But yeah, like COVID, like kind of was being talked about when we played that final show, but nobody really knew what it was or was taking it seriously yet. So I think like a week or two after we played our final show, like everything shut down. So we were very lucky that we even got to do one at all, because if we would have had to have waited, we probably just never would have done a final show. So
right.
we were pretty lucky that we got to do it.
Rebranding and like, hey guys, here's our new name. Like,
yeah, especially because at that point, like I said, like we already had everything for Carcosa for the first EP done, and we were just waiting, right? So we were like, let's just do this final show so we can put Carcosa out. So yeah, if we didn't get to play the final show, I'm sure we maybe would have released Carcosa even earlier. Actually, I don't know.
Yeah. That's kind of funny that whole chain of events. I guess it's like, I don't know. It's crazy how things could have been differently. But you guys, what fascinates me, because we were just listening to a Plague as well before, like the first single you guys put out, and immediately I think the first thing that kind of stood out to me was, you guys kind of knew what you guys were going for with this, right? And there not being that much time, I guess, between like the last show for and with Galactic Pegasus and then moving into Carcosa, there seems to have been a lot of planning still, that was done. You've got like similar attires, the logos on the windbreakers and all this stuff, and a very serious look. How was that transition in terms of like planning? How much was planned? Like, I'm curious.
It was a lot of planning. Like, I don't remember when exactly we had the Carcosa EP finished. I think it was in like 2019, maybe even earlier than that, or like very early 2019. So we were sitting on that for almost a year before we put it out, if not longer. I think we finished the music first before we had a project name. Originally, we were going to call ourselves, what's the name? It got taken by another band that's pretty well known now. Viscera.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah. So we
similar style too,
Dude, and the same guy who made the Galactic Pegasus logo made Viscera's logo. So we were like, "Fuck!" Now we definitely can't use it. So we originally were going to do that, and then we had I probably still have it somewhere, but we had this like big like sheet of paper with all these band names on it, and Carcosa was one of them, and it was one of the ones that like Johnny was really pushing for, I think, and the rest of us were like, I don't know about that, like it sounds too much like Barbosa, like a pirate or some shit. So we kind of didn't really want it, and we went for Viscera, and then like months before we ended up announcing Carcosa, the other band Viscera came out, and we're like, fuck, all right, well, we got to redo that. Luckily we hadn't bought like designs or anything yet, but
right.
Anyways, the long story short, I think that ended up being probably the best thing that could have happened to us in a way, because changing our name to Carcosa like totally dictated the style of how we did everything moving forward. I don't know if you're familiar with like the show True Detective at all, or like where Carcosa comes from.
I don't. I saw the Yellow King logo and stuff like that, but that's as much as I know.
That's fine. I'm not going to get too deep into it.
Sorry, what?
Have you seen True Detective?
No, same. I was like, I heard about it, but I don't know about the sport, so.
That's all good. I'll give you like the long story short. Basically, there's this show called True Detective. Everyone, well, me and Johnny in particular in the band really liked season 1 of that show. It's like an anthology. Hint, hint, our album was called Anthology, where every season was, its own self-contained story, blah, blah, blah. First season, there's basically like this city called Carcosa, and it's essentially hell on earth. And within that city, their king in yellow lives there. So once we chose Carcosa as the name, that's kind of what got me started thinking on like, well, how are we going to brand ourselves? What are we going to look like? All this other stuff that I hadn't really thought about before. Yeah. And then it was like, well, once we decided on Carcosa, I was like, okay, well, obviously black and yellow, because it will match the theme of Carcosa, because that's literally what we're taking it from. And then like our logo, I have it right here. Like our logo is, like a
on
spiral,
the back
and
too.
yeah, and that everything. I try really hard with branding. But yeah, so pretty much it dictated like our whole style. Like we were like, not very many bands use yellow, so that's already great. I don't know why, but yellow is like a very unpopular color. So I was like, hey, that's good. It will stand out. And like if you put our album artwork next to like all these other bands, there's almost never yellow artwork. So I was like, that's probably a good thing. And then it helped me decide like, okay, we're going to have like this spiral because there's a spiral in the show. We're going to have yellow because the king in yellow is in the show, blah, blah, blah. It kind of like helped really like fill out the kind of plan for what we wanted everything to look and, brand, that's a terrible way to phrase that, but you got what I mean, like
No,
how
no,
we
no,
would
no, but
how
I
we
mean,
would show ourselves.
that is what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like it is a branding. You know, we think of it differently because we're artists, but you know, that is what it is. You know,
No, but it matters a lot though. Like,
For sure.
absolutely.
you know, when you see a logo and you have it in your mind, I remember back in the MySpace era, I would see bands like We Are the End with a sick logo, like all the image and the, you know, vibe of a band can change your first listen. So I really do believe that it matters a lot.
I agree for sure. And like, I think that the reason that I wanted to try so hard with that stuff was because with the previous band, Galactic Pegasus, I didn't know what I was doing at all. I literally just picked that name because it was like something my friend at the time, like, he just said, haha, Galactic Pegasus is a funny name. And I was like, sure, let's do that. Like, I didn't put any thought into it at all. And over the course of that band's career, I definitely saw like the benefits and negative sides of that. The benefits being like, it's such a ridiculous name that people remembered it. But the bad thing is a lot of people remembered it because they thought it was fucking stupid. And it's very, very, very hard to convince metalheads, especially, to give something a chance if they've heard the name and are like, oh, that's dumb. Like, they're immediately, it doesn't matter how good the music is, they're already going to have that preconceived idea that it's like, I'm probably not going to like this, and it's way harder to win them over. But that's a whole other topic. Anyways, that's kind of why I really put so much work into trying to like plan the I guess brand identity, if you want to call it that, of Carcosa.
I don't know if it was like, but I guess it was. But for me, the fact that you guys are not as much as the music is very good, you seem like people who don't take themselves like too seriously, like able to like, you know, just kid around and have fun while you're doing music. And it was fun for me. Like, it was a good discovery because we had a whole era of like, I Set My Friends on Fire, all those bands just kissing around. I don't know if you remember like Smosh and all those things. And that's kind of, as much as it's good what you're doing, you know, like the music is serious, but the goofiness, if I can say it like that, like the fun that you seem to have, I feel like it's a big part. Like, people are connecting with that. Like, would you say that, you know, it's a fair statement? Would it be part of the success, you think?
I think it definitely is, especially like the TikToks that Johnny and myself make. It's been a bit of a fine line to balance, though, with that being said, because again, like, the music of Carcosa is very serious, like especially the first EP is all about,
you guys
like,
go into like super serious topics and stuff. Right?
It's like not
it's
fun,
definitely not jokey.
Exactly. So it's a bit of a weird like fine line we're balancing, where like myself and Johnny and everyone in the band, like, I mean, you guys have been in bands, you know, like most of the time you're fucking around with your friends, right? Like, it's not that serious. So it's kind of like this weird line you're balancing where you're like, well, I want people to take the music seriously, but also on our own videos, like, we're not like 100% serious all the time, right? Exactly. So it definitely helped, and it was really hard, and still is kind of hard, to like walk that balance of like, we want to be goofy and be ourselves on our own social medias, but like, if you look at Carcosa's page, it's almost all serious, other than like a couple things here or there. So we just really wanted to make sure it's like
for Valentine's Day, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And like, we can still have fun, but we want to make sure that like, if you like Carcosa, you like that music. You don't follow Carcosa because you think our TikToks are funny, hopefully. But it kind of also goes hand in hand. It's weird.
No, but I think you're doing well, if I may, because like I was talking about, I Set My Friends on Fire and stuff like that, but these bands, they were, you know, just kidding around in everything.
Yeah, exactly.
That was their brand, right?
Yes,
that was a part of their thing.
Different, but I think that's what makes you know, Carcosa stand out, because you guys are likable as people. Like, you're funny and people are connecting with you, and then when they listen to your band, it's real music. It's good. It's, you know, like you take it seriously.
It's not YouTuber music, right? Because I'm sure you've had that sort of struggle.
Absolutely.
Right? It's the YouTuber's band, you know?
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I was just going to bring that up. We got that a lot in Galactic Pegasus for sure, where it was like, oh, that's whatever, that guitar YouTuber's band. And it was like, I mean, I am in the band, but it's still like a band. This doesn't, you know, it was really hard
it's
to...
It's kind of derogatory the way people will say it, right?
Yeah, and I mean, at least the way people said it for that band. But yeah, it's a really shockingly hard line to walk, which I think we've done a pretty good job at.
Yeah.
But it's so not easy, but like it's very tempting in a way to rely on like only making like memes for everything and having that be like the band's entire marketing plan, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
It would get traction too, right?
Exactly.
Like you guys know that world, especially. Like it would be easy for you guys to tap into that if you really wanted to. So
exactly. So the temptation is there because we do it on our own profiles and it works, most of the time. So like, we know we can do that, but also we want to make sure that if you follow our band, you follow our band because you like the music more than anything. So it's tricky, right? Because we're like, well, we use our own social medias with all these memes and whatnot to get people in the door, I guess you could say. And then once they're in the door, even if like, I don't know, 10% of those people also fuck with Carcosa, then we're like, that's great. That's all I want.
It's kind of just a funnel at that point.
Exactly.
I think it makes sense though, like because it's way easier to get into music of someone you like or you relate to, right? Like if you like someone, at least for me, it depends on everybody. Dumb has a different opinion than me on that, but that's how I personally connect with an artist.
Exclusively listen to band members that I hate.
Okay, there you go. No, but for me, like it's a big part. Like if for example, I see interviews and stuff like just in their regular like whatever TikTok and I like them as people, there's a lot of chances that I'm going to be more invested in their music. And to be fair, I think there's a lot of people like that, very emotional with music, and they like that part. And for me, I didn't take Carcosa any less seriously. And I discovered you guys with the video you're making with Johnny, if I'm correct. That's how I saw it. And then I heard the music and I was like, okay, that's, super heavy and sick. And it didn't take away from what you're doing. So
that's great.
I just wanted to say it. Like, I think you're walking the line properly is what I wanted to say. So
yeah, thanks. I really appreciate that. It's always nice to hear. I really appreciate that. It's trippy as well in a way. 'Cause like, especially after last year when we started, touring for the first time, up until that point, like everything Carcosa was only online other than like that handful of local shows we had played. So we kind of didn't really like know if it would translate to the real world, so to speak, because again, we had that happen with Galactic Pegasus where like technically our music on YouTube did pretty good, but then we would play a show and like 5 people would come sometimes. We're like, fuck,
Right.
But this time around it was like, in a good way, the opposite, where we had like reactions that were all over the place across the board, which I love. So we had like everything from what you said, like where people were like, I saw you guys on TikTok and I thought you were funny, so I checked out your band and I also like your band. And we're like, fuck yeah, that's awesome. We have people that are like, I saw Johnny's vocal covers and thought he was a good vocalist, so I followed his band. Or like, I saw your guitar covers and there's like, it's almost like there's like 5 or 6 different funnels, and it's like completely different fan bases that hopefully, come to like our band is really the hope. But it's cool that we get to hear all these different reasons in real life. And like the coolest one by far is the people who come to a Carcosa show and they're like, this is my first deathcore show I've ever been to. I'm like, what the fuck? Sure. That's crazy. And, it's like they might never have listened to deathcore ever in their lives if it wasn't for those dumb little memes we made. Right. So you never really know like what's going to connect with people. And it's really cool to, get that feedback in real life, I guess you could say.
And you can literally change the whole, path of, someone in music, right? Like you're kind of this gate and now they see, for example, like Johnny and like Angel Maker, they start listening to other bands and next thing you know, your band just introduced, it's kind of the first love of this scene. So I think it's awesome. Super cool.
Yeah. We're like honored whenever that happens for sure.
That is where we're at, though. I mean, if we look at what's, I mean, a major part of what's made deathcore as big as it is right now in 2024 is undisputedly because of Lorna Shore and the TikTok blowing up, right? So, so I think we are in that that time frame right now where social media and stuff like that, it's always kind of been, but TikTok specifically has kind of been like a huge driver for a lot of new people to get into the scene. So whether it be through like whatever, if you want to call it goofy or not, the snarl, the you know, the Lorna Shore bit or not, but also through, you know, other kinds of videos like you and Johnny are doing, you know, it all kind of like brings a new crowd of people that weren't necessarily there for deathcore to begin with, but now they're hooked, which is super fucking cool.
Exactly. And like, yeah, exactly. So it's like, what if 1 million people watched this reaction video to Will Ramos doing the snarl thing?
Yeah.
And it's like, sure, 1 million people saw that, and like most of them are probably like, haha, that's crazy. And then they never listen to deathcore again, and that's fine. But again, if it's 1 million and 10% of those people,
exactly,
that's still a lot of fucking people.
0.1%, that's still a lot, you know?
Exactly.
Like, it's every single extra person you can get into it. I mean, we're seeing it in the scene right now.
Absolutely.
Like, there's clearly, you go out to shows, and I'm sure you've seen it in the tours you've done this last year. Like the crowds are pretty young, you know. And if we're talking like you know, like the Angel Maker tour, I mean, Angel Maker's been around for forever. It's not like they're a super young, you know, current generation type band. Like they've been around. Yet the people that are showing up at the shows are at least what I witnessed in Montreal, and what I've been witnessing every time I go out to a show is the crowd. I don't know anyone anymore.
Same.
Right, yeah.
Everyone's super fucking young.
You feel a little
it's a
bit,
new crop.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. My back starts hurting every time. But it's cool. It's cool to see. It's a whole new crop of people that are getting into this music. You know, for us, it's weird because we've been through the previous wave of deathcore, you know, and now it's like coming back after not having been there for a while.
Yeah.
But it's cool. It's so cool to see that there's, you know, it's coming back and getting new people into it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like my favorite thing to hear. Whether like whatever band gets you in the door is a great thing. Like whether it be fucking whatever, Lorna Shore, anything, like anything that gets people even just interested in the genre in the slightest is great. And that's a really, really hard thing to achieve for any band. And it's cool that deathcore has had many moments like that now, especially in the past, like whatever, 2, 3, 4 years, you know, like I saw someone just say in the chat something about Slaughter to Prevail. That's like another great example.
Absolutely, yeah.
Where it's like a lot of people who listen to Slaughter to Prevail probably don't even know what deathcore is. They're just like, oh, I don't listen to deathcore, but I love Slaughter to Prevail. And it's like, that's fine. Like maybe someday they'll change their minds. Maybe some days they'll get into more music. Maybe they won't. But regardless, it's getting people in the door, right?
Yeah, and sorry, Dom, you can.
No, go ahead.
I was about to say, sometimes it's just one thing that stands out. Like I think in Slaughter to Prevail, obviously Alex's vocals are very particular, and let's be real, it sounds like a freaking demon mixed with a bear or something like that. A demon bear is what I would say. And maybe someone at first is just showing that to their friend in kind of a reactive way, right? They're just like, oh my God, hear that. And next thing you know, one of them is going to just start listening to it. So I think anybody that stands out, like any bands that stands out, even like smoother styles like Sleep Token and stuff like that, even if people are like, that's not metal, they're still doing something different. And it can be like a whole new introduction. So I think it's always good, no matter how they do it. If it's different, if there's new people, if the scene is going, I mean, why not? It's just everybody wins. It's awesome, you know? Same thing with Lorna. So I just wanted to compliment what Dom and you were saying about that. Like, I never see it negatively. Even if it's a TikTok, something like that, even if at first it's funny, if it works, if people are listening to it, let's go, man. It's awesome. It's bigger than it ever was right now, I think, honestly. Even back in 2008, 2009, it was pretty big. And I think now it's bigger than that. So it's wild. I would say so.
Yeah, definitely.
It's kind of crazy to see how it's gotten. Yeah. I'd love to talk to you. Like, we're talking about standing out and stuff like that. Johnny has an incredible vocal range.
Oh my God.
I mean, you can, you know, at first, you know, you hear the covers and stuff like that. And you're like, oh, okay, this is cool. He can clean sing really well. He's a good singer as well. Okay, cool. But it's something different to see that being applied to Carcosa as well. And I think that's one of the things personally that I think really makes you guys stand out. And I haven't for I mean, thank God we're in this day and age, I guess. I don't know if you see it differently. I don't see as much discourse about you guys having clean singing in a deathcore song as much as I would expect. But
Right.
as much as I see it in other bands. You see comments for Of Sulfur all the time. People not digging it because of the clean vocals and stuff. And to me, it's kind of like it's similar. So it's like, I don't know, why is it? I don't know. I'd just be curious to hear kind of your take on maybe how that came to be, and maybe if there was any decision making behind like getting to do clean singing in your band, and how the reception's been from your point of view.
Yeah, sure. So there's 2 songs that have clean singing. I think I could definitely be mistaken. So there's the main one would be Absent Post, which originally didn't have singing, and then we did a release of it for the full length album, where it's actually Johnny's girlfriend Charlie doing the singing on it.
I didn't know it was his girlfriend, actually.
Yeah, and she fucking killed it. And
that whole extra outro bit is super fucking cool.
Yeah, she did an amazing job. Shout out to Charlie. But so that was kind of the first time we tried adding clean singing, and we weren't really sure what to expect. We all loved it because like we listened to, stuff outside of deathcore, obviously, and they're singing in like every other genre. So like for us, we're like, yeah, it sounds great. Who cares? But we knew that like some people who like deathcore are very adamantly like, fuck singing. So we were kind of like, we think it sounds cool. It's a re-release and a reimagining of a song that already exists. If people really don't like the singing, I guess they can, still listen to the old version.
To the rest of the stuff, yeah.
And like, fuck it. Let's just see how it goes. And I think it was mostly like Johnny leads the charge on pretty much everything to do with vocals. And I don't remember whose idea it was to add singing. It was probably his. And yeah, I don't know. We knew that there might be some backlash, I guess, but also like when we heard the final mix of how it sounded, we all loved it. So we're like, fuck it, let's just see what happens. And then people actually were very receptive to it. And like, I don't think I recall almost anybody not liking it, which was really cool and a nice surprise because again, like I've seen, like you're saying, like so many other deathcore bands who've tried to add singing, and it's always this big like debate on fucking Reddit or whatever. But for us, for some reason, it seemed like most of the people liked it, and that was really cool. And it kind of like opened the doors for us to be like, okay, well, maybe we should try that again. I guess technically Vermin is on the same album, so never. But that's the other one that has singing. But both of them.
But you guys put it out as a single as well and stuff like that. It was.
Yeah. I guess Vermin would have come up first now that I think about it. But yeah, on Vermin, it was a little different as well because that is Johnny singing, but it's kind of like that like pitch singing, like Architect seed thing where it's like he's singing, but it's also layered with like screaming. So we were like, it's probably, we'll
that's
probably
one way to
sneak
make it work.
there.
Like it's still, it still is clean singing. There still is clean singing, but
Yeah.
I feel like that doesn't deter people from those comments.
No. I mean, it's our
usually.
biggest song of all time, right?
Yeah,
so,
that's it.
Yeah, so I don't know. For whatever reason, it seems like our fans are very receptive to clean singing. I don't really know why. Maybe it's because we have a fan base who's coming over from other genres of music or TikTok or whatever who don't necessarily care as much if it's like true deathcore or whatever. Maybe. I'm not really sure. All I know is I'm happy that people liked it and it definitely opened the door for us to potentially like include more of that stuff in the future. I don't know how much we'll do or if we'll do it, but it's nice to know that if we decide to do it, it's not going to be like universally aided or something like that. So it just helps us to feel a lot more confident and like, free to just kind of do whatever we want. Although to be honest with you, Johnny's just going to do whatever the fuck he wants anyways. So
yeah, but I think as much as like, and it's a weird thing, by the way, that the metal community sometimes can be so close-minded where it's supposed to be a place where you're being yourself and that's it, right? It's supposed to be like just be yourself and whatever. But I feel like sometimes they're pissed because it's the heaviest thing they're listening to. And then you had to, so they feel like, oh, now it's not, you know what I mean? Like, they don't feel like it's as heavy.
For sure.
But
Breakdown still slaps at the end of the day, man. That's all. That's all that
sometimes
really
even
matters.
more, though. Sometimes even more, because you just add like a smoother part and then it slaps. But what I can respect, though, is that every time you do something different as a band, it's always scary for the reception and stuff. So I feel like as much as some people can be pissed, there's also a lot of people respecting the move, being like, okay, they're trying stuff, they're doing what they want to do. And I think there's something respectable about that. And people are also connecting with that. I could be wrong, but I feel like it's kind of what's happening with that. And Dom, I have a question real quick, because we were talking about Johnny doing vocal. I'm very interested to know your writing process in general. I guess it depends on every songs and vibe you're going for, but I'm just curious to know how it goes usually. Let's say you want to build a song or something. I'm just curious about that.
It definitely differs like song to song. What we originally wanted to do was we wanted it to be like, we're only going to write music when all four of us are in the room together, which very quickly did not happen because that shit is impossible, especially now with, Johnny and Travis being on tour all the time and stuff. So the first EP had a bit more of that kind of like collaborative stuff going on at first, but then also Johnny wrote 2 of the songs on the first EP completely by himself, and he showed them to us, and we were like, I mean, the songs are fucking sick, so whatever, well, let's just use them anyways. So it kind of depends song to song. Usually it goes one of 3 ways. Usually it's the first one is Johnny will be like, hey, I wrote this entire song, and he'll show us basically a completed song.
Thank me later. Here we go.
Yeah. And then he'll be like, let me know if you have any feedback. And I'll be like, oh, maybe we could change this part. And he's like, I don't think we should. And then we argue about it, and it's great. Or the second way is if it's a song that I lead, I guess you could say, I am really not that confident with writing full songs. Like, I can do it, but I don't really like to, especially now because I'm so used to working with Johnny, and I obviously love the style of music that Johnny and Cooper write. So I personally prefer not to write full songs. Like, I'll come to them with like, I don't know, like a minute or so of something. And I'm like, hey, here's a minute of whatever, riffs, breakdown, something. I think it's cool. What do you guys think? And then if they like it, then we kind of take it apart and build it from there. And then Cooper does things a bit of both ways. Like, there's been songs where he's written basically an entire song by himself, or there's been songs where he does the same thing as me, where he writes like about a minute or 2, and then he's like, what do you guys think of this? And then we work on it together. Or the fourth way, which is my favorite way, is we actually all write stuff together, but that just doesn't happen as often as we would all like it to, obviously.
Yeah. You
You
guys are all super fucking busy.
But I think that's awesome, because it really feels like you're all super open-minded, and not like you're not blocking yourself from anything, right? Like you mentioned clean singing, it was good, you liked it, you did it. Like it feels like there's no, like, you trust each other is what I'm hearing. Like when Johnny is sending you something, you probably before even hearing it, you're like, that's probably going to be sick, so I'm trusting you. So
yeah, sometimes annoyingly so, because there's definitely some times where, like, don't get me wrong, like, it's not all smooth sailing, obviously, like with any band. Like, there's been plenty of times where one of us will write something where it's like, let's say I write something and I think it's really good, and I send it in there, like, no, we don't want to use this. I'm like, fuck, but it happens. Or vice versa. Like, sometimes Johnny will send something and it doesn't end up, like, me and Cooper are like, not quite this or whatever. So it doesn't work all the time, for sure, but that's kind of what we try to do. And yeah, it's certainly not like smooth sailing 100% of the time. Obviously, we're like any other band. Like, sometimes there's arguments and whatever, but like in the end, I think it always results in music that the four of us are happy with. Yeah. It's just the road to get there. Hey, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not.
Yeah, but like any relationship, I would say, like, you talk a lot with these people, you're creating with them. And sometimes when you have an idea, you're kind of, I wouldn't say emotionally attached to it, but like when you really believe in something, and then the rest of your band is like, I don't know. Like it's sometimes it's difficult not to fight it.
Of course.
You're like, I'm pretty sure it's sick. And they're like, I don't know, man. And you're like, oh crap. So like it's sometimes it's hard to let go, right? When
of course.
So
but it's usually for the best, or like
right. You guys are all working towards the same goal at the end of the day, right?
Exactly.
And I'm sure you guys are mostly on the same page as to how you guys want the band to sound, generally, like broadly speaking, you know.
For sure, yeah. And that's definitely something we had to work on a lot. And I know that, you know, when Johnny is writing, I think I could be wrong on this. Maybe, I don't know if you're doing a podcast with him later or something, perhaps he might be able to tell you more, but I think that we all kind of know what each other will like as well. Sure. So sometimes like he'll write a part where he's like, I bet Andrew will like this part or something like that, and vice versa. This is
an Andrew riff, right?
Yeah. And especially for Johnny, because he's the one that does like 99% of anything to do with vocals, including anything that I do. Like when he sends us a song, he does all the vocals.
You do a fair amount of backup vocals too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks. I have a lot of fun doing them, but yeah, Johnny writes all that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So what he'll do is like after we've decided on an instrumental of a song, then he basically will take it and just do all the vocals, including anything he wants me to do, and then send it back. And he just basically gives me like a Google Doc where like parts that I'm supposed to do are in green, of course, because, you know, why not?
It has to be, yeah.
So like so then when I listen to the song for the first time, I also read this like sheet that basically annotates like you do this, and then I'll listen to it, and most of the time we'll agree, and then sometimes I listen to it and I'm like, there's no fucking way I can do that because I'm also playing guitar or whatever. But yeah, it's an interesting way to do things for sure, but that's more or less what we've landed on at this point in time. And like, yeah, again, as you know, everyone's schedules kind of fill up with, you know, Johnny being on tour with Angel Maker a bunch and Travis being on tour with Spite sometimes and so on and so forth. So we kind of got to make the most of our time. Which, you know, I would love to get in the same room with everybody and write that way, but it's just, we had to come to terms with that's just not going to happen, right?
It's awesome though, because from an outside perspective, and I'm sure Dom feels the same way, it feels like you have an elite band, like all very talented people together. Like, I mean, Spite, Angel Maker.
You guys can all record each other as well and stuff like that, right? Like, I don't know, that's kind of cool to be able to have other people in the band that can record themselves and actually flesh out songs without having to go to a studio per se to demo stuff out and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah, the only thing we've ever been to a studio for, well, by we I mean Johnny, is vocals. Like everything else has always been done right here, basically. So like all the guitars and bass, I track them all here. And then like all the electronic synthy stuff, Cooper does at his house. And then all the vocals, either Johnny does himself at his house, or recently he started going to a studio because obviously it sounds better.
Sure.
But yeah, so it's this very weird process where like it's very hybrid. Like sometimes we're together, sometimes we're not. And then even if everybody comes here, which is where we do group writing sessions, like I still end up basically re-recording everything anyways, because like when we're demoing, we don't really care if it's perfect, obviously.
Tracks or whatever, just get the ideas on paper and that's it.
And then I just have to like tab everything out so nobody forgets how to play it. And then I'm like, oh fuck, now I have to learn it or whatever.
It's creating different vibes and energy though. Like I think it's a good thing that you don't always go in the same way about songs. Like I could be wrong, but I mean, I think it creates different kind of vibes and energy. So it could be also part of what makes you guys stand out in terms of songwriting. It's always hard to tell, but I feel like it could be a factor. And while we're here, I'm extremely jealous of your room. I just wanted to point that out. So sick. Like the yellow guitar that I'm obsessed with that I told Dom before. So sick with the logo and all that. Super cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, just wanted to... Dom, I'm pretty sure, Dom, you have questions and stuff, but I'm like, there's no way I'm not telling him his room is awesome.
Hey, I mean, speaking of guitars, what's with the green?
Oh, man. It's really just, I like green guitars. There's not really, it's not that deep. I still am like a really big fan of After the Burial. I'm sure you guys obviously know who they are. but rest in peace to Justin Lowe, their original guitarist. He played a neon green 8-string guitar, and after the burial was the band they were the first band I ever heard that played 8 strings. And I don't know, I just thought like a neon green 8-string looked super sick, especially because they had like a neon orange and a neon green,
Right,
and
that's
they're
true,
metal. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I always wanted something like that, and now I have one, which is cool. But yeah, I kind of just, I don't know. I just gravitated towards green guitars. And then the thing that I always like to do is like, I like to just play off of what people say about me. So I didn't really do it on purpose. I just like green. So I just happened to buy a lot of green things. And then over time, people were like, oh, of course it's another green guitar every time. So then I was like, I'm going to get even more then, because fuck you. And that's really all it came from. And now it's like, it's kind of cool because now anytime any guitar company releases something green, like I'm definitely going to get tagged in the comments, and I'm like, fuck yeah, that's branding right there.
Me and Yan are going to have to brainstorm some things to try and incorporate into your life, and start getting people to comment something to introduce something new into your life that you're going to do out of spite.
There you go. Yeah. And then ironically, I saw Chris becoming, I'm sorry if I pronounced that name wrong. But yeah, Carcosa's yellow, Baena is green. That also actually really helped with going back to what I was talking about earlier with like Carcosa's branding, is because when Carcosa started, this whole like green guitar thing was already like well underway. And I kind of like realized like branding doesn't have to be like that serious. Like it can literally be as simple as a color. Like Knocked Loose did it great as well. Like they had a blue album, a red album, whatever, right? It can be as simple as a color. So again, that's why I was like, oh, if we're Carcosa, we're yellow because that's the thing from the show. And also other bands don't really use yellow, so we're going to stand out and blah, 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 blah. So ironically, people kind of trolling me and saying like, oh, he only likes green actually helped me a lot.
There's a lesson to be made out of everything.
Yeah, exactly. Embrace the meme.
Exactly. But it's the best thing to do, because I feel like if you're, I don't know, like showing that it gets to you, like it's going to be worse. And then, like you just have to show like no problem, like just go with it. And then after a while, these people, next thing you know, they started by hating, and then they like what you do and they follow what you do. So it's like,
yeah. Or they get bored of complaining about it, also, and that's also fine.
Same thing. It's the best defense, I would say, to just go with it, So sure. It makes sense. I don't know, Dan, if you have other, because I have like YouTube questions, but if you have like other music question, maybe.
Go for it, man.
It's
all
okay.
It's all good.
It's a random one, but as a fellow, person who does videos on YouTube, I'm just wondering, like the plaque that you have, I'm just curious as in terms of a moment, like receiving that, like I would like to know if for you it was just like, okay, cool. Or if it was like a big milestone, like, oh my God, I'm there. Like, I'm just curious.
It definitely was a big moment for me, especially because I've been doing YouTube for so long now. And I think I got that plaque in like 2020, maybe 2019. But at that point in time, I had already been doing YouTube for like fucking 8 years or something. So I was like, man, I'm never going to get to 100K. Like, this shit is taking forever. So when I finally got there, it felt so good. And like, well, I think it speaks for itself that I have that right there. It was like one of the first things I moved into my house. And I have no idea where my degree from university is. It's like under my bed somewhere. So I think that kind of speaks for itself.
The degree of YouTube on the back wall instead.
Yeah, like I was way more stoked on getting that than my university degree, because it was something that like I wanted so bad and I worked my ass off for it. Not that I didn't work for university, obviously, but like, I don't know. It was huge, but also at the same time, like I was saying earlier, it was really cool and really exciting for like a day. And then I was like, okay, back to the grind. What's next? What's the next milestone? Blah, blah, blah. Because unfortunately, for better or worse, that's how like I feel like every creative person is, or YouTuber is, where it's like, it's very hard to enjoy a success when you get it, because you're like, okay, that's cool. What's next? Like you always want the next thing. Which is good because it's what drives me to do as much as I do, but it's also kind of bad in a way, because when I finally get the thing I wanted or thought I wanted, then I'm like, oh,
it just,
okay.
The goalposts always move.
Yeah, of course. And like, that's something I always tell to like, other whatever YouTubers who have like smaller channels or whatever. Like they don't ask this question in particular, but they ask like, or they have this like, you naturally have this like thing in mind. It can be like this for musicians too, right? Where you're like, oh, if
What's
my
the making it moment? Like, what is
sure,
that?
yeah, like what you think will be your goal. Like it's like, oh, if my song gets 1 million views, then I'll be happy, right? That kind of a mentality, which everybody has, including me, still, even though I know it doesn't make sense. And then if you get there, then you have a moment where you're like, fuck yeah, but then very soon after that, you're going to be like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
So it's weird.
Yeah, it's I love your answer because that's kind of what I was expecting, because for sure it's like it's for a YouTuber, I think receiving that is kind of just like a proof that it's working and you have many people, because we forget
It's
that.
cool they even do that plaque.
Oh, absolutely.
To begin with,
Yeah,
right? Like,
just
like
have
the only like social media platform that does anything of the sort for creators, right? And
Yeah.
it actually does mean something to people when they get it initially.
For sure.
right? So-
Yeah.
I think it's important, and it's a way to just, because as a YouTuber, you're doing your stuff, but you don't have a boss or anyone saying, hey, that's cool. Like, for sure, you have comments and people supporting, which is awesome. But receiving a plaque like that is kind of a, hey, like, you know, like you're doing something great right now. Like, just keep going. So every time I see that, I swear, even for people I don't know, I'm like happy for them. Like, every time I see someone getting the plaque, I'm like, that person worked. And, you know, and of course, some people blow from day to day, but most people, they work for, you know, a long time before getting it. So
For sure.
I think it's cool. And and congrats, by the way, for, you know, just for.
Well, way past that now, right?
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Past the 300 at this point.
Yes, but you know, it's so much work that like it's that like I respect. I was talking to them about that before the interview, and I was like, he's doing that for years, and most people don't know how much, you know, ideas you need to have and to reinvent yourself and try different things. And sometimes you rewatch your old stuff and you're like, oh, what was that? So like, it's cool,
I mean,
man.
over 1,000 videos on the channel, right?
Yeah,
Which
it's
is
fucking ridiculous.
absolutely insane when you like, that's like a huge number of like, when you think about like the amount of time and effort you have to put into each and every one of those things. It's like, oh shit. All right. That's a lot of shit, especially like you're doing it's all like mostly original content, right? Like you're actually like, you have to record stuff. You're producing things. It's not like I don't know, no shade to reactors or anything like that, but there's varying degrees of how much work goes into a video, you know? And I think the style of video that you've been doing since the very beginning has always been probably one of the more work intensive styles of videos to make, right?
Yeah, I would say so. And yeah, definitely no shade to anybody who does it differently. Like, I don't care at all.
It's just different, right? It's just a different level of effort. Like, at the end of the day.
For sure. Yeah. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. And something that I really wanted to ask also, like over the years, YouTube has changed in terms of like algorithm and new things. I was just curious to know how big of a challenge it was for you to like constantly, I wouldn't say constantly, they don't change every week, but I mean like when they were changing certain things with tags and the way you upload, stuff like that, was that like a big challenge for you to adapt, or you were always kind of okay with it?
No, it's definitely very challenging. It's definitely like the worst part of this job, I guess you could say, is like I feel like every, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, let's say, I basically have to like fully change the type of content I do. So, I mean, you guys seem fairly familiar with my content. So like, again, if you look at like my old videos, like I originally used to do like straight up just instrumental covers of songs that I liked just because I thought it was fun. And then I started doing like metal covers of pop songs, and then that kind of fizzled out. And then I started doing like compilations of heavy riffs, and then that fizzled out. And now I'm more doing like guitar demos and reviews and unboxings. So it's kind of all over the place, and it's very difficult because like, I mean, some people don't have to do this, mind you, but like I've always found that every like 3 or 4 years, it seems like I have to very much change what I'm doing, because what I'm doing just doesn't seem to work anymore. I'm not really sure like why that is. If I knew, I probably wouldn't have to do it, right?
I mean, trends probably at the end of the day, right? Like even outside of YouTube, just kind of like what kind of content people are into and what else is available.
Yeah, exactly.
Genres change and all this stuff. So
exactly. And like, it depends too on like yeah, like what's popular, how many people are doing it, is oversaturated, so on and so forth. So
I mean, early
that's,
videos are like
yeah,
covers of Gangnam Style. I'm sure that
exactly,
that
yeah.
wouldn't do as well today. I'm pretty sure.
No, but back in like 2012, it was great,
It was
right?
fucking banging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as a creator, I could even talk about platforms, right? Instagram, basically every platform you need to adapt now. Like you could be doing something for a week, could be working super well, then they decide to change something and then you've got no views at all. So it's kind of, it can be
Yeah.
scary, right? For a creator, you see your views going down, you're like, what, what's going on? So
Yeah, yeah. Especially like when it becomes, or if it becomes your job, then it's like, well, fuck, if my views go down too much, then what am I going to do? Right. So it's definitely stressful. And I don't really have like a good answer for that because I have never figured it out. I feel like there are some channels who definitely do where they just do one thing and they do it forever and it seems to work. But more often than not, I would say like almost all YouTube channels have to change it at some point in time.
Mhm.
Like a great example, I love these guys. So no, again, no shade to them, but like the perfect example is like Epic Mealtime, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like they had this super unique content or concept rather that nobody else had done before, and everyone was talking about it. It was so cool, so hype for pretty long, honestly, like
Yeah.
at least
Probably
5
even
years.
overstayed their welcome in terms of trends. You know.
Sure, yeah, but I mean, that's like a great example of a channel that seemed or was killing it, and then I don't really know what happened. Like I don't know if they just
Yeah.
didn't want to change or didn't change or there was internal conflicts. I have no idea, genuinely. But that stuff happens all the time, and like that happens to me too. Like if I was still doing like metal covers of pop songs to this day, I would be fucked. Like there's no way I would have been able to do this full time because those, at least for me, like died off in popularity like a long time ago, which is why I kind of don't really do them anymore. So it's tricky because you kind of always have to be on the lookout for like what's next, which again kind of sucks in a way because it makes it really hard to enjoy those
Yeah.
successes when you have them because you're like, okay, this is cool now, but am I going to be able to do this a year from now or whatever? So it's just part of the game, in my opinion, is just like figuring out a way
Every
to
time
new
you're throwing
shit.
shit at the wall, right? Like it's not like you know what's gonna hit the next time when you do have to change. So it's always kind of like trial and error
Yeah.
every few years.
and
You know, like,
hoping,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean, we talked about it briefly in DMs, but I told you, man, that video you did about the first downtune guitars, that was a really cool format. I
Thank you.
really liked that video. How it was made, the style of content. I think especially considering like obviously it's like it's still a guitar first video. Like I'm sure mostly guitarists will be into that sort of thing. But I think as a general music enjoyer or metal enjoyer, that's the sort of thing that kind of goes beyond just a general like guitar focused crowd. I don't know. I personally thought it was a really fucking interesting video for what it's worth.
Thank
I know
you.
it was something new you were trying out, but
Yeah, I
thought it was
appreciate
super
that.
cool.
Thank you. Yeah, that's like a perfect example of something where I was like, I have no idea what to expect. It's just something I wanted to do. Because like obviously, you know, I'm a fan of like Finn McKenty and Punk Rock NBA, all that stuff. I know some people don't like his videos, and that's fine too, but I like them.
We're all fans here for what
Okay,
it's
cool.
worth.
I figured like with what you guys do,
Yeah.
you probably
Yeah.
are. But anyways, yeah, it was just something I literally had that idea like listed in this Google Doc for like a year. And I was like, I kind of want to try this, but I don't really know if it's going to do well or blah, 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 blah. And then honestly, for me, it's always like January, February, especially are the times when I just fuck around and like just do stuff because nothing really happens in these 2 months in terms of like YouTube, especially for like ad revenue and sponsors. Like they just don't really exist right now. So these 2 months are always the months where I try more new things because I'm like, if it doesn't work, it's not as high risk because like whatever. Which is a little insider information for those of you that are not YouTubers. That's why a lot of YouTubers do a lot of weird shit around this time of the year.
Weird shit or just straight up take a break. A lot
Or,
of
yeah,
YouTubers just kind of
honestly.
take a break in
True.
January. Yeah.
True.
Hey, I get it. It's tempting, but I'm not quite at the level where I can just fuck off for 2 months, you know. But
I also wanted to know, and sorry, Dom, if you have like questions. It's just like we're on YouTube,
you
and
don't
I'm
gotta
like,
worry. You don't gotta worry about me,
okay,
man. You're
because
good.
like it's my, like I've been doing that for like since last summer, so I cannot pretend that I've been doing that for a long time, but just in that time that I'm doing it, I wanted to ask you, like, happens to me a lot that I'm when I'm not doing something for YouTube, I feel like I should, you know what I mean? Like I have like time that I'm just relaxing. I'm like, maybe I should create content. Do you have that feeling often that you should be creating something or working on something?
I mean, just to add to that, the having a band is also the same relationship oftentimes. That's like two.
Absolutely. Well, being in a band is different though because there are other people involved. So at least with being in a band, sometimes you have the excuse, or you can make the excuse where you're like, well, I can't do anything right now anyways because nobody's free. At least, which doesn't always help, but you can at least tell yourself that.
There's always something you can do. There's always the next social media post.
Of course.
You can feel better about it.
Yeah. But
I'm glad that works for you.
It doesn't, but I like to tell myself it does. But yes, to answer your question, I still feel that way all the time. It kind of the same thing I was talking about with like, it's the same, like, it's a good and a bad thing because on the one hand, it's what makes you so driven to make stuff, and it's why you probably will succeed because you're driven and you clearly want to do it, which is the most important thing. Because if you're making YouTube videos for the sole intention of making money, then you're going to quit. Like there's no fucking way, right? Like I mean, there is a way, but it's very, very, very unlikely. So it's a good thing.
Advertising crypto, maybe.
Sure, maybe, but it's a good thing in the sense that it's like that's what probably keeps you driven to keep going. But it also sucks because again, it's hard when you want to take a break, you need to take a break, and you do, but you're just sitting there like whatever, playing Final Fantasy or something, and you're like, I can't really enjoy this or pay attention to this right now because like every time a cutscene happens, I'm like, oh, maybe I should do like, I wonder if I should email this person or whatever.
I could do a Final Fantasy cover.
Or that, exactly, right?
No, I swear it's my life. Like the second, like I'm trying to talk to myself, I'm like, okay, that's a day that I'm doing nothing. I'm trying, really, I try my best, and I end up on my computer and I end up working as much as any other day. Like, so I was curious to know if it's just like something that, I'm guessing a lot of people, creators are going through that because it makes sense, right? Like you want to keep going and you have ideas and like you said, it's not for money. It's like, it's just you want to keep going and you want to give that to the people.
It's a weird FOMO. Like it's purely FOMO because there really is no one actually expecting anything as much as we think there is, right?
But we feel like that though. That's the weird thing. Like you feel like you're disappointing people. Like for some reason, I'm like, I should maybe do more or upload more, and people are just nice and no one is complaining. In my mind, it's like, okay, I should. So that's why I was asking, especially at your level, right? Like people have certain expectations and stuff like that. So I was just curious, how to balance. But
yeah, I wish I had advice for you, but I still struggle with that myself, unfortunately.
I mean, hey, the guy took a podcast on Valentine's Day night. So
there you go.
No, but it's reassuring if I'm honest. Not even kidding. It's reassuring to know that you feel like that. So it's not just something weird I'm going through. It just makes sense to do like that. So
yeah, no, the best thing you can do, really the only actual advice I can think of is like just to talk to other people that do something similar to what you do. Because that's like probably one of the hardest parts about doing this is like it's hard in a way to like talk to your friends who don't do this about it. Yeah. It's the same thing with being in a band where you're like, shitty things happen in your band. You complain about it to your friend who has
dudes sleeping in a van every night. Well,
yeah,
why
exactly.
the fuck would you do that? Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like a very weird thing to do in the first place. So it's kind of hard to like, I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say, but basically like if you manage to find someone who does something similar that you can talk to, it helps so much. Like in the past, like 2 or 3 years, especially, I'm fortunate enough to have gotten to know a lot more YouTubers, and like we have like a group chat where we talk to each other, and like sometimes some of them will be like, hey, like I uploaded this video and it sucked ass. Like, does anyone have advice? And sometimes there is no advice, and it's nice to just be able to vent to people that at least understand what you're talking about. Because, like, if I complain about it to whatever, a friend who worked a desk job all day, they're gonna be like, "Oh, it must be hard, right?" So,
Sucks to
anyways,
suck.
No, you're right, because a lot of people see it as like it's easy, right? They're just like, well, you're making video. I'm like, yeah, it took me 25 hours to edit, but thank you. Yeah, I'm just making videos. So like people don't really, and I get it that they don't understand. You have to do it to kind of understand what comes with it. But I appreciate the advice, because ever since, Finn McKenty was like my main, like Finn McKenty and Cozy representative. I don't know if you know this one, like
I haven't seen that channel.
He's touching it, like he's talking about more, I would say, like emo metalcore, kind of what Finn is doing, but in more niche.
Sure.
And just talking with them was very reassuring as well. So the group you're talking about is actually a very good thing, I'm sure, like a very good place to be, and maybe even for collabs and stuff like that probably happen. I think it's a very good advice, I would say. So
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of really the only thing I can think of. But in saying that, every single person that I've ever talked to feels exactly this way. So it's totally like a normal thing. For better or worse, again, like it sucks to feel this way, but also it's just part of the job, apparently, because everybody feels this way. Also, Baker, hello, and yes, I'll be your Valentine, by the way.
There we go.
You got lucky. No, but it's awesome. And you answer also another question I had. I was about to ask you who, like in terms of YouTubers, who inspired you, and you said maybe a little bit Finn McKenty. Did you have some other people back when you started, maybe, or?
Oh man, that's a big question, just because I've been doing it for so long. It's changed so many times. I guess like originally I would honestly say Drusif. Shout out to Drusif.
Yeah.
He's also been doing YouTube forever.
Still killing it too.
And
Which
still
is
amazing in everything he does. He does not get enough credit, in my opinion. But he was doing like the whole like gent pop metal cover thing way back in like 2010, whatever, whenever I started, because I saw, his videos, and I liked like the Pop Goes Punk albums and all that. And I was like, oh, you can like do this as a single person who records your own music. I didn't even know that was possible until I saw people like Drusif's videos, and I was like, I wonder how they did that. How did they do that? I'm going to find out. Right. So that was kind of like one of the earliest examples of an inspiration I can think of. And then it's kind of like changed over time. Like, obviously like Nick Nocturnal, he's fucking killing it. He's also changed a lot over the years, and I've mad respect for him.
Super funny too. I would like to add, like, he makes me every time he does his faces and all that. I don't know, like he's great. He's good.
Yeah, I love Nick. And then Finn McKenty is great as well. I don't really do well. Maybe in the future I will. I don't know, after based on that one video, but I like watching his videos a lot, even if I don't agree with his opinions, because I just think it's interesting. And also, like, kind of what you mentioned earlier, he does a very interesting thing where he makes content that's about music, but is presented in a way that even if you're not a musician, it's still entertaining and interesting. Because like I watch his videos with my wife like quite frequently, and even if she doesn't like understand all the details, it's still like interesting enough that she understands it. And it's like, I don't know, it's like, it's not too specific that it's like you only can watch this if you're a guitarist. It's like, well, no, if you like music at all, like there's something of value to be learned here.
He's touching on broader and broader like bands as well, right? And
exactly.
Going back into the past and stuff like that. So I think there is generally a bigger appeal to this sort of.
And always in a very original way too. Like that's difficult to do. Like always a different approach and stuff. That's cool.
I'm sure there's like tons more. It's like I said, it's changed a lot. Like depending like what phase of my career I'm at, I guess you could say. But those are probably the three that come to mind.
There's so many that have come and went, in the past like 12 years,
Trends,
which is kind of
And I was also curious. Sorry, I'm throwing questions at you like crazy, but like it's so interesting to to me. How does it feel now to be in a position where you inspired people? I know you probably have a hard time seeing yourself as that, but I'm just because I know for a fact that it's sure that it's happening, that you're influencing people now. So I'm just curious, does it feel a bit like that? Do you have like full circle moments like that sometimes? I'm just curious about that.
It's really cool, and like it's an honor for sure, but I don't really think of it that way, or I think of myself that way pretty much ever. Again, like most of the time, all I'm doing is sitting in my basement alone talking to a camera. So it's only really going to like on tour or to NAM or whatever, like times when I'm around like a very concentrated amount of people who are into the same thing I am. Those are the moments, right, when I'm like, whoa, yeah. Mm-hmm. But other than that, like, it's very easy to not think of it because again, I'm usually just sitting in my basement alone and doing my thing like I do every day. But I don't know, it's weird, man. Like I have a very hard time accepting that that's true. I know it is, but it feels weird to say, and it feels weird to hear.
I can get it, but just to confirm, right in the chat right now, we have two people just confirming like you influence them a lot and stuff. Like and I think Dom can say the same thing, but just when we announced that you would be coming here, people were like, oh my God, wow, and stuff. So like I can confirm that even if you don't see yourself like that, because I can tell, you're a great guy, good values and stuff like that. So you're not like a ego person and stuff like you're a good guy, but like, I
made you.
Yeah. I mean, no, but I think it must be, I'm sure you had moments where you look at your channel and you're like, can't believe I'm there, that I must be special per moment.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm not saying this in a negative way at all. Like it's fucking incredible, and it's just mind blowing, and it's very hard day to day to kind of realize that, because again, it's like I do kind of the same thing every day, and it gets very, I don't know, it's like it's a job, right? So I'm like, I do this thing, this is the result, cool, done, what's next? Like it's very mechanical in a way. But yeah, there's definitely some moments for sure. Like again, like I was saying, I definitely like vividly remember like the first time I went to NAMM in like 2019 or whatever. That was like kind of the first time I ever experienced that feeling, because it was literally like you go to a convention center where it's only guitarists who only listen to metal, who only play this. And it's like,
is it
literally the people,
the amount of people that that know about you versus real life. Yeah,
exactly. So that was kind of the first time when I had one of those like, whoa, like this carries over into real life. I didn't even realize it. And then same with like the first time Carcosa went on tour, like going to whatever, somewhere that's the entire opposite end of a different country, and having people like yell our lyrics at us. I was like, what the fuck? Like, that's crazy. I don't really know how to explain the feeling. It's a good feeling, but it's like, it's just weird in the best way.
No, I get it. I think it's a good answer. Like I think it's kind of the same answer in terms of like Carcosa, the plaque you received, all those amazing moments. It's like you're a creative person. So from your perspective, it's just, you do what you love. People resist, and you don't, not that you don't realize, but it's kind of what you do after a while. It's just, it's parts of your life. And sometimes you kind of wake up and you're like, oh my God, yeah, that's so cool. And you have those amazing moments. So your answer it's a good answer. I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
Very interesting.
Maybe before wrapping things up, I'd be curious to maybe just talk to you a bit about Musician's Mansion.
Yeah, sure.
Oh my God.
Because I mean, that was a pretty big thing. I mean, specifically, we're talking YouTube and stuff. I mean, the amount of people that were there, but I mean, obviously there was a lot involved. Everyone was doing their own content on top of the content that was made for the Jared Dine stuff and all that. So I'd love to hear how about the experience, maybe from your end, and how it was, and how it was probably meeting a bunch of people you hadn't met before, but have been friends with online for so many years.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to talk about it. It was like legitimately one of the best weeks of my life. I had so much fun. And now I feel bad that I didn't say Also, obviously, Jared Dines inspired me to that earlier question. Sorry, Jared, if you see this.
It's okay. We're gonna Dom is gonna edit it and put it.
No, I'm actually going to take out this specific part as well. I'm going to take it out just to make sure it's not mentioned.
But yeah, no, for real, it was fucking incredible. Like I said, kind of to answer your earlier question when I was saying like, as like thankful I am to be able to do what I do for a living. It also is very lonely in a way sometimes because again, it's like I'm sitting in my basement alone talking to a camera. I do the thing, I upload it, it does well or it doesn't, and I'm like, great, or that sucked, and oh well, tomorrow's another video, right? So it's very much like just go, go, go. So that was the first time I had ever been in an environment where every single person there, they all get it, right? They all do the same thing or almost the same thing, whether they be in a band or a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer, whatever. They do some form of this. Yeah. So being in an environment where it's all people like that had never happened before for me or for most of the people there, I would say. And then also it was crazy because a lot of those people, I've seen their videos on YouTube for like, you know, up to 10 years for some of them, or I've even worked with some of them, but never actually met them in person before. And it was just mind blowing to be like, what the fuck? You're like right there. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but like, if you ever meet someone that you talk to online, like whether it's like video calls or like maybe you play, I don't know, Xbox or some shit, like it's weird in a way because you're like, I know this person, I talk to them all the time, but like you have this moment where like you're talking and then you look and they're actually there and you're like, oh fuck, you like almost forget because
me and Yan haven't had that yet, but me and Yan haven't met.
We're
so
gonna
far.
have it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We live like an hour and a half away from each other too, which is the craziest.
And you've never
thing.
met?
No, I mean we started doing this like I don't know 7-8 months ago, something like that.
Oh shit!
And like it's just, I mean, it just so happens that we both live like close to each other, but like we could have, for all I know, the way we met, it was through the internet. We could have met.
Oh wow!
We could have been like across the planet, but
I had no idea. I assumed you guys were friends this whole time.
We became friends and we became friends in like 20 seconds, and then it just like clicked. But it's mind blowing that we're living close. Like we're gonna totally get what you're saying now, right? Like when we're gonna meet, it's gonna be like, oh my god, we're seeing each other. Like it's must
weird.
be special.
And then maybe one of you will be like, you're taller than I thought you were, or vice versa.
or shorter. Yeah.
Usually I get the I'm shorter, but I feel you. But anyways, yeah, it was fucking incredible for so many reasons. But like more than anything, like the show itself was awesome and so much fun. But like more than that, honestly, just hanging out with everybody was so cool. Like I had never been in an environment like that where it was all people that kind of like we all understood where each other were coming from, I guess is a good way to put it. And then obviously the show itself was like incredible. Like this has never been done on YouTube before, at least for this type of content. Like obviously it's based on like whatever Fear Factor and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like for YouTube and for like heavy music, definitely not. So
and all uploaded kind of at the same time too was very special. I was expecting it to be like one video and then you wait and then another, and you just like uploaded every time. I was like, oh my god, I have this whole thing to watch.
Yeah,
and everyone's personal content I think was really cool that came out of that as well. I'm assuming it must have been hectic as fuck going from, you know, everyone maybe trying to. Everyone's got YouTube brain over there, right?
Yeah,
everyone's got content brain, right?
Yes and no, because for a lot of people, honestly, I think that it was like the final day when everyone was like, "Oh shit, I should probably do that."
Oh, okay.
For some of them, like I think I was one of the few people that was making stuff like throughout the week, so that I didn't do that because I was like, "That's gonna suck," and also I knew that everybody else was gonna do that. So I was like, the likelihood of getting everybody who I want in these videos when they're free is lower if I wait. So I tried to do them like anytime I could. But anyways, yeah, the behind the scenes, or not behind the scenes, but like the bonus content on everybody else's channel, I feel like is a lot better representation of how it actually was in a way.
Sure.
Because like the challenges that you saw on the episodes is exactly how they were. Like Jared represented us really well, but also like those challenges most of the time were only like, I don't know, 6 hours of the day. So the whole rest of that day, like we're all just fucking around, hanging out and doing whatever, right? So a lot of that bonus content is like actually the majority of the time, and the challenges were
There's
like
more time spent in that bonus content than the actual content itself.
exactly, to some extent. Like there was a couple days that were pretty intense, like the first 2 days, the ones where we wrote the song, played the song, did the music videos, like those were a lot more intensive. But then like the last 3 days, each of those challenges was only like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 hours. And those days were a lot of fun because, and then at that point, like everyone kind of started to open up and
loosened up and got
it's like same
yeah.
thing if you go on like tour or whatever. The first week you're all kind of like, hey, how's it going? And then once you get used to each other, it's a lot more fun. But yeah, that it was like the time of my life. I'm like fucking honored that I was invited to be a part of it. And yeah, I don't know, it was one of the most fun weeks of my life, and I would love to do it again if Jared wants me to. It's obviously up to him. But yeah,
he's probably gonna redo it, right? Like I'm guessing he's gonna probably
he's hinted at it, I think, is the extent of what's been said so far.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, and even if I did, it's not my place to say, of course. But
sure. But I wouldn't be surprised, is what I'm saying, if he comes back with another kind of.
I'm pretty sure he's publicly said he's trying to do a season 2, but that's really all I know as well. Like he's playing it pretty close to his chest, which is understandable because there's fucking like 20 people on the show. If he tells everybody, it's gonna leak, right?
I don't even know how you can organize such a big thing. Like, if I'm honest, just figuring out everybody at the same place, the logistic of all that, like how it's gonna work, filming everything, the editing. When I saw that, like when you uploaded everything, I was like, is he like a machine or something? Like, how did he? Like, it's very impressive for honest.
Yeah, it's crazy what he was able to pull off. Like I think he reached out to me originally in like, I don't know, I want to say like March or something last year, so about a year ago. And then we filmed everything in July, and then he uploaded it in November. So there was like decently big like gaps. Well, not really gaps, because I'm sure he was working a lot on the show that whole time, obviously, but like it took a long time of planning between each of those 3 steps. Like all I had to do was fucking show up, right? I didn't really have to do much else. But yeah, shout out to Jared, man. That dude is crazy, and definitely like one of the most creative people on YouTube, in my opinion.
Yeah, it gave me like almost like this MTV kind of vibe, right? Like that we used to have with the like cribs thing and all that. Like he kind of did it, and I'm pretty sure it was intentional, but it was.
Well, it's cool to see it in our niche, right?
Yes.
Like in the style of content that we consume and people that we actually know from the scene and stuff like that. I think that's what made it special, at least for us metalheads,
Yeah, of course. And again, like a lot of the people that ended up being on the show, not all of them, but like, some of them have been like me, where they've been doing YouTube for like maybe over 10 years. So it was really cool. And it was a lot of fun. I liked it a lot.
It's awesome, man. That's super cool.
At first, did you have like, just last question like that? Like, did you have a little nervosity? Because like everybody's super talented, right? And
absolutely.
I know you're talented, but even if you are, you don't perceive yourself like that, right? So like so being surrounded by, all these talented people, like at first, I'm guessing it must be a little stressful.
Oh yeah, man. Absolutely. I'm kind of thankful in a way that there was only like one musical challenge.
Right.
But yeah, no, on a serious note, like, my first reaction to Jared inviting me was like not excitement. The first reaction I had was like, me? Are you sure? And then even when I got there, like definitely that first day where we had to write a song in like 5 hours or whatever, I was just like, man, like I'll try, but I don't know. And I definitely, I'm like super happy with what we ended up with, mind you. But yeah, I was extremely nervous. And I think if you watch the show, a lot of people were, because again, it's like, other than Lauren on my team, I had never even met or talked to any of those people before, right? So I was fortunate in a way that I was like, well, at least I know Lauren, and her and I had done like a couple of covers over the, a few years.
Yeah.
So it was cool that I at least knew somebody. And then I think Bradley and Sophie like kind of knew each other, but for the most part, like none of us had ever really done much before. Definitely never in person. So it was just like,
Yeah, then writing
okay.
music is like a whole other beast.
Oh yeah,
you know?
and like
that-
five
that's-
entirely different musical
even if you
styles.
didn't know like each other, you know, it'd be a big thing to do, a big ask in 5 hours to write a song kind of thing. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like and just five entirely different musical styles. Like I'm in like a deathcore band. Bradley's like, I fucking love Megadeth, and it's like it was all over the place, right? So it was very interesting because we wrote something that I don't think would have any of us individually would have ever written, which is really cool and kind of the whole point of it, obviously. But it was just cool to like see how it all played out for all three bands.
No, that's super cool, man. Maybe I just go back maybe to Carcosa real quick just before letting you go.
Yeah, no
I'd
worries.
be curious. I mean, I'd just be curious because how the tours went, because we briefly touched on that, but that tour with Angel Maker was such a cool fucking lineup, like an all deathcore, whatever, you can include slam in there or however you want to call it, but like an all deathcore tour. From my perspective, I'm sure it was like that elsewhere, but in Montreal at least, every single band that played one after another, every single set ending resulted in a line at their merch table. It was a packed room from start to finish. I'm pretty sure most of the tour sold out, right? Am I mistaken?
Yeah, most of it, yeah.
And like those were like fairly big venues most of the nights. Like in Montreal, at least, it's like one of the nicer venues that we have here. I mean, we've got like fucking arenas and shit, but like in terms of like for a deathcore show, at least one of the nicer venues and stuff like that. So I'd just be curious, especially you guys not going out on tour a lot, kind of like one of your first tours altogether. You know, obviously you did the first tour with Carcosa earlier that year, but I have a feeling that Angel Maker tour must have been something special as a tour to do.
Yeah, it was awesome in a lot of ways. It was hard in a lot of ways too, for sure. Because again, like in a weird way, like Carcosa, it's not that we skipped steps, but it almost like feels like we did, because we kind of went from
because you forget the 10 years in the band before that. Yeah, okay.
But like as Carcosa, like you know, it was like we played like 3 local shows and then 1 festival show in Alberta. So we only played 4 shows.
Yeah.
And then we went directly from that to doing a month-long tour, like right away, basically Within Destruction. So I'm glad that we had that Within Destruction tour first, because it was like a little bit smaller and it definitely taught us a lot. But even still, like the jump between the 2 tours was pretty wild. And it was also different for a lot of reasons too. Like I know you guys were kind of talking about this on the pregame thing, but yeah, like having Johnny be split between 2 bands was also kind of weird and new for us. So there was a lot of things that were like a little odd, but for the most part, like obviously the shows themselves were fucking crazy. Like definitely like by far the biggest shows we'd ever played in our lives, regardless of any project or whatever. Like, yeah, it was weird as hell. Like again, especially going from only kind of playing local shows to doing something like that relatively quickly was just wild. And yeah, just seeing the reception was awesome as well. Like, yeah, tons of people coming out to the merch table every night, tons of people who had never seen us before, which is always really cool, which obviously how could they have? Yeah, it was a really cool experience overall. And we're definitely still learning a bit, because I don't know, like when I say skip the step, I just mean like usually bands don't go to this size of a tour as their like
100%.
first or second tour. So that part is a bit more of a learning curve than we anticipated, but not in a bad way necessarily.
It's the best way to learn, if we're being
For
honest.
sure, yeah.
I mean, sure, it'd maybe be smoother if you did it step by step, like small step every time. But I mean, being kind of just pushed into it is, you know, you guys aren't stupid. You guys will be able to figure it out. And it's just like, you know, maybe things to consider that you guys didn't anticipate, but it's all learning experience at the end of the day. I think a lot of most of the bands on that tour, to be fair, were similarly in that kind of scenario, right?
Yeah, I mean, like Angel Maker's definitely played shows that are that big or bigger before, but
Sure, but
probably
I'm thinking
for
like Falsifier
yeah,
and even
yeah,
Awaken Providence. That I don't think both of
yeah,
those bands had really done any tour of that magnitude,
yeah, exactly.
and that size and stuff like that. So I'm just
Yeah,
saying from that perspective, that, it's not like every band was fucking huge and used to
no,
touring and all this stuff.
yeah, and like some of them have been around for a while. Obviously, like I know Falsifier and Vulvodynia in particular, I think have been around for quite a
Yep.
while.
Yep.
Um, so they were definitely like a lot more, I guess, dialed in, you could say. Not that I think we played bad or anything, but yeah, again, overall, awesome, but definitely was like, there was a lot of like, holy shit moments in both good ways and bad ways, mostly good though.
And also, I would feel bad not asking before you go. And I'm sorry, Dom, you're gonna hate me, but like, really, my last thing, I asked you about your influence in terms of YouTube, but I think it would be interesting to know in terms of maybe guitar player, vocalist, just real quick. I know there's probably a ton, but like if there's,
Yeah,
few
sure.
artists or
Yeah, no worries. Like it's interesting because it depends on like which context, I guess. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
for Carcosa, it's definitely like Chelsea Grin, Humanity's Last Breath, and probably like the Acacia Strain.
oh,
More on Johnny's side than anyone's for that. For me, it's mostly like Chelsea Grin, Humanity's Last Breath. And then for Cooper, I think maybe adding in like Mick Gordon, like the guy who writes like the Doom
Sure.
soundtracks as well, because he does a lot of the more,
Electronic and spacey
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Thank you. Words are hard. So for Carcosa, I would say those are probably the most obvious influences. There's obviously more than that. And then for me, vocally is kind of weird because I don't have like a deathcore vocal style. So I really like Despised Icon
Sure.
because they're one of the only deathcore bands that has, Alex Arian, like a
the
hardcore,
vocal.
yeah, which is super fucking rare in deathcore. So obviously I love that because I do that. And the reason I don't really know like how I developed this type of scream because I don't listen to hardcore that much. Like I more base it off of bands like the old Devil Wears Prada stuff, like that kind of thing. Um yeah, so vocally I would say more like that. For more recent ones, like obviously, I don't know, like Knocked Loose or Boundaries and stuff like that.
Sure.
And then for
Bands is
guitar,
so good.
oh dude, that new song is so good.
The new song is insane,
So
dude.
good.
I have it on repeat right now. It's like at the top of my songs list, like in like songs I added to my stuff, and I'm like about to press shuffle, and then let's start with this one.
Yeah. And then turn shuffle on. And also counterparts as well.
Cool.
Yeah, like I don't listen to too much hardcore music, so I don't really know like
kind of like melodic metalcore, melodic hardcore.
yeah, like more metalcore leaning, I guess. And then for guitar, definitely like Justin Love from After the Burial, rest in peace. Diego from Volumes, again, rest in peace, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Are kind of the first two that usually come to mind for me.
both amazing. So
Oh, dude, absolutely. And then for more recent ones, probably like Buster Odom, obviously.
I was gonna mention Buster. It had
Of
to.
course, yeah. Yeah. We fucking worship Humanity's Last Breath and Village Arta, so obviously have to mention him. And Kala as well, who's in both bands.
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I think it's something I love to know, like where inspirations are taking place, and it's always fun because when you hear, then you're like, yeah, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense with what I'm hearing. So
Yeah.
and of course, me and Dom, every time we hear the Spice Icon, we're like, it's like it's our band from here, and like we're super proud. So
I watched your video on them the other day. By the way, it was great.
oh, thank you so much, man. I keep forgetting. People are taking me down. I'm like, yeah, I did videos about it. It's so cool. I'm exactly like you, by the way, on this part. Like people are like, I watch your thing. I'm always like a kid. I'm like, oh, he's watching my stuff. That's so cool.
Yeah. Well, I had only heard of I only found out about your podcast like last week, so it's super cool that we got to do this so fast. But I already told both of you this. But yeah, I saw the Psychoframe interview, and I was like, oh, that's fucking cool. Like, there's almost like no information about Psychoframe for some reason. So I was like, it popped up on my homepage for some reason, probably because I listen to Psychoframe all the time. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And I watched it, and I was like, oh, these guys actually know their shit. Like, they ask good questions. And then after I watched that, then your video started popping up on my homepage, and I was like, "Hey,
like,
that's the same guy."
YouTube's doing its job. That's what's up.
Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, YouTube, so much. No, but thanks, means a lot. And Alex is the nicest person. You know, they posted my video on their page, stuff like they're very cool dudes. Despite Psychon, like just regular sweet people. But yeah, thank you, man, and thank you for doing this, by the way.
Yeah, of course,
today,
absolutely, man. Yeah, this was a real cool conversation you have. I mean, you say it was cool we could do it so fast, but I mean, right back at you, right? Like we started talking not long ago, so it was cool to be able to have you on short notice on Valentine's Day, no less.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we'll let you get to your
there's
Valentine's Day.
There's a steak waiting for you.
Probably getting cold
that's
now,
right.
so we'll let you enjoy. But thank you so much again for coming on, man. It was a real treat.
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you for having me.
In the future, we're gonna reinvite you for sure, man. Like, to talk about new project. You're gonna receive the other. I don't know. I think the other plaque is gold or something. You're gonna have this one by
there
then.
We go.
Oh yeah,
there you go.
I think a million's a little ways off still, but maybe.
Never say never. We'll see.
We're gonna manifest it. You're gonna get it. We're gonna come back.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
All right, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
We'll talk. We'll keep in touch.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, peace out, man.
See you.